Jones is back again. 14 days.
When did she go out?
Monday.
I don't know why they bother.
Who's that? The old Alpers or the police?
I was thinking of the magistrates.
Better off in here, isn't she? At least she gets fed and sleeps in a bed.
They're coming through now.
4 on, Miss Flaxton.
Thank you, officer.
All right, put down your kids a minute.
Hello, Miss Flaxton.
Hello, Millie. Back again, I see. You must like it here. Aye, off you go.
The governor's on her evening rounds.
All right.
3 hours sitting down that reception.
What's your name?
Brogan. Jane Brogan, Mrs.
I see. Transfer from Style.
That's right.
2 years.
Right again.
Miss.
Well,
You call
Me, miss.
yeah, well, that figures.
Or any other officer, married or not.
or you'll find yourself on a report.
And you wouldn't want to start off on the wrong foot while you're here, would you?
Good evening, Miss
Oh,
Flaxton.
good evening, madam.
Late reception?
Yes, madam.
Oh, dear.
Good evening, Mum.
How long this time, Millie?
14 days, Mum.
You'll be in with Millie.
Well, I'm not standing for that.
What is it now, Brogan?
I'm not being doubled up with that filthy old bag.
You do as you're told while you're here.
You can't make me do anything I don't want to. All you can do is punish me for not doing it.
What's your name?
Jane Brogan.
Do you know whom you're talking to?
A screw.
This is the governor.
Oh.
You call her madam.
Oh, sorry, madam. Only I'm not being doubled up with an old paraffin like that.
Don't
Now
you call
stop
me a
this,
paraffin,
both
you
of
young
you.
cow.
Paraffin lamp, tramp, cockney slang.
I'm not a
I said quiet, Millie. I can assure you that whatever Millie is outside while she's here, she's perfectly clean in her person and habits.
I was in reception when she came in. She was rotten filthy, lousy.
She was in a bit of a state, madam, but she was not lousy. She was seen by the SMO. All she needed was a good bath and a change of clothes, which she's had.
But I'm doing 2 years, madam. It's not right putting me in with someone who's only doing 14 days, let alone that old bag.
I'm afraid there is no empty cell in North Wing until tomorrow, madam.
What about South Wing?
Well, yes.
Well, if there's a place in South Wing, put Millie there. She'll probably go there after induction anyway.
Very well, madam.
We're trying to find another cell for you.
Oh, thanks, madam.
It's as much for our benefit as yours. That girl there. How old is she?
16, madam.
What's she doing here?
She's in custody for a medical and social report, madam.
Yes, but what's the charge?
Forced absconder. Doesn't seem to have a criminal charge, madam.
I'll look into this tomorrow.
She ain't no right to go saying those things about me.
Millie,
She's not
stop
right.
worrying. I've worked everything out. You'd like to be on your own anyway, wouldn't you?
Well, yes, Mum.
B18, take your kit up. The officer will be along in a moment.
All right, come on now, pick up your kits.
Come on, Millie.
Come along now, we don't have all night. This way.
Up you go, Millie, another way.
Get some water from the recess if you want it.
Is this fresh?
Yes.
It's all right. Jane Brogan.
Bella Coyne.
Bella.
Isabel. Diminutive of.
Do what?
Sorry, short for.
Yours?
Afraid so.
Not bad.
Thank you. Do you like painting?
I don't dislike them, love. All right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, drink this. It'll help you sleep.
Hello, Mother.
Hello, darling.
Tired?
Oh, exhausted. Oh, have you got one for me?
Oh, this one. I've just made it. I can make another.
Thank you. How was the lecture tonight?
Fine. Met a very interesting girl there.
Oh, yes?
Does fabric design and paints murals. She said she'd like to meet you.
That sounds ominous. Why?
Well, she was in the company and somehow the conversation got round to some of the creative work that's being done in prison. Well, someone told her who my mother was.
And?
She sort of cornered me. Wanted to know what's being done to encourage creative work in prison, that sort of thing.
I know the type. Did your father phone?
Just before I went out. Sends his love. Won't be home for a fortnight. He's going to ring you again tomorrow. Mother, what is being done to encourage creative work in prison?
Tom. See, you've been here before.
Twice.
How long are you doing this time?
3 years.
I like in. What'd you do to get that?
Bounced a few checks. Quite a few.
I got 2 for shoplifting. Quite a lot. How long you done?
6 months.
I done 2. Just been transferred from Star. Nearly got lumbered tonight.
How do you mean?
Tried to stick me in a cell with an old paraffin. Wasn't having that. I pulled the governor.
Mrs. Boswell?
Is that her name?
But how?
She happened to be around. What's she like?
Mrs. Boswell? All right. Quite nice, actually. Well, you can talk to her, you know.
A screw's a screw, and that includes governors.
They're not all the same.
No. I'd say your pictures were pretty good.
Thank you.
You on the art class?
Yes,
Any good?
I like it. There's a very good teacher comes in.
Bloke?
Yeah,
Good looking?
very.
Oh, well, I'll have to see if I can get on that.
I see you're married.
That's right, love. Another prison.
I want a drink, Dad.
Go to sleep, Dean. Oh, no, you don't start watching that thing. Now, listen, you're going to have 2 jelly tots and you're going to go straight to bed. Do you understand me? One, 2. Oh, God, your sister's sorry. Come on, get into bed. Be quiet. Get into bed.
But how on earth does he cope?
Same way women have to cope when their old man's locked away.
Oh, yeah, I know, but I mean, a man, 2 small children, it's not the same, is it?
And it.
on, Brogan, up you get.
Okay.
Be outside the centre office with the rest of the receptions when we unlock for labour.
What's the grub like here? I believe the official term is adequate.
Sure I can't fry you something?
No, thank you, darling.
Do you know, last night someone was saying that it costs more a week to feed a prison guard dog than a prisoner.
Don't you like the porridge either?
Well, it's one way of keeping slim, isn't it?
Does it bother you then, the food?
Get used to it.
I don't. Still, I suppose when you think 2/3 of the world is practically starving, we eat quite well under the circumstances.
Well, that isn't why it doesn't bother me, love.
Come on, Kim. Come on. Oh, come on, take some of this. There you go.
Tony Woods and Restless Woman there. And
Get on with
ladies,
yours.
Tony
Not
does the
turn
number.
you
Let
again.
me tell you, you'd be restless too.
Come on.
Warming up on the turntable right now. Pink Sable and Bad Manners.
Will you get on with yours?
My son made the point.
Meaning no disrespect, of course, Governor, but students do tend to overlook practical economics.
Nevertheless, it does cost more a week to feed the dogs. Millie Jones is back in again. 14 days.
Yes, I was looking at the reception list when I came in.
What are we to do with the Millie Joneses, Mr. Radley?
House them, feed them. Well, there is little else we can do once they've reached that stage.
I was wondering if we shouldn't start an Alcoholics Anonymous group.
Well, it's a bit late for our Millie.
I was thinking more of the women here with a drink problem who might benefit from that organisation.
Yeah. We had one at the Ville. Most male prisons do. Of course, most of the men went on it for the free cigarettes that the visitors handed round, but I know of one or two it certainly helped. Would you like me to have a word with Dr. Mays?
If you would.
Right. Of course, there is the question of who we get to run it.
Well, we could discuss it with the assistant governors, and perhaps Miss Clark might lend a hand.
Well, I think that's all.
Yes, I think so. Are you on the reception board this morning?
Yes.
I spoke to a few of them last night on my rounds. There's a Jane Brogan. See what you think of her.
Sorry about last night, dearie. Haven't got a ciggy on you, have you?
Why don't you?
Jane Brogan!
Morning, Mary. Look, leave that. You can finish it later. Well, how are you today? Mary, how can I help you if you won't speak to me?
Morning, Doctor.
Governor? Morning. Morning, Miss Armitage. Early round.
The deputy's doing receptions and applications today.
This young girl, Mary Harris, sister's just been telling me
Yes,
she...
Now, she seems to be suffering from shock or some kind of deep depression, but it's difficult to tell if she won't talk at all.
Do you think she'll talk to me?
I doubt it. I don't suppose you've had a chance to look at her record.
Not yet. All I know is she's 16, a borstal absconder with no criminal record.
But then what's she doing in here? The usual. Nobody knows what to do with her. Oh, God, it makes me so angry. What's being done to that girl? She's just a child. By our enlightened society, by responsible people, so-called.
You said she was a persistent absconder, Doctor.
That's right, Mrs. Armitage. Remand homes, approved schools, now borstal, the lot.
I don't see how you can blame society for that.
Don't you? Well, it may interest you to know that I have read her record, and I cannot find one tangible criminal offence that she has committed.
Not really, Doctor. She must have. Or she'd not have been sent to Boston.
No. It's the usual appalling story of rejection and totally insensitive solutions to a situation that's been created... that has been created by people who I suppose we would call our colleagues.
I'm quite sure wherever she's been, the prison staff have done their best.
Well, I'm sure they have, Mrs. Armitage, but you know what the doctor means, and so do I. I'll try and find out more details. In the meantime, Doctor, I would appreciate your more professional opinion on the subject.
Oh, yes, of course. I'm sorry. Sorry, Miss Armitage. Well, briefly, she comes from an extremely deprived background. Her mother's a slut, father's a drunk. She was taken into care by the local authorities. She was difficult, unruly, not unnaturally. And after that, the pattern goes on repeating itself. One authority passes her on to the next, institution after institution. She absconds from most. She doesn't really break the law during her brief periods of freedom. Sleeps rough. She's abused by men from the age of 12. And now she ends up in here. Why?
I see. I must agree with Dr. Mays. It does seem an instance of the authorities not knowing what to do in cases like this. But the court sent her here. There's nothing we can do about it.
While she's here, we must see that she gets all the help that we can give her. And I think I will try and have a word with her, Doctor, if you don't mind.
Of course.
Nothing at all?
Not a word.
But Dr. Mays is right. She should be in a psychiatric hospital, not here.
Another institution? Pass her on again?
Well, at least she'd get the kind of treatment she probably needs.
She's up at court in a fortnight. I expect our recommendations will lie in that direction. But I doubt if they'll be acted upon. Did you see Jane Brogan?
Yes.
What'd you make of her?
Oh, I expect she'll settle down all right. She is a bit aggressive. Oh, I'm not sure.
What do you mean?
I suppose I'm still trying to adjust to dealing with women prisoners. Well, after 10 years dealing with men, you get to know every type. I mean, it's easier to identify with their problems, what motivates them, makes them tick, you know.
You think they're easier to read than women?
Something like that.
I see you were granted a transfer to Mineira Home for visit.
Yeah.
Well, you couldn't be much closer. Your flat's only about half a mile from here, isn't it?
Yeah.
Get on well with your husband, do you?
All right.
Just all right?
Well, it's been a bit dodgy at times, you know.
Has he ever been in trouble?
Dennis, you must be joking.
Why'd you say that?
He's not the type.
You're lucky then, aren't you?
Are you saying that we women are more devious than men?
Well,
It's all right, Mr. Radley. If you want to know, I think so, too. But don't forget the success that you had with Janice Quinn when she threatened you with some scissors. You were pretty devious, too.
I was wondering,
Yes?
well, whether I could have a special welfare visit.
But you're getting a reception visiting order, aren't you?
Yeah, I know, but it's not the same, is it?
How do you mean?
Well, all those others about. You know, listening.
Any particular reason?
Well, I haven't been able to see Dennis, my husband, and the kids since I got convicted, you know. Well, he's not very strong. I mean, capable. And I thought, as this was our first visit, it would help if I could,
Yes?
well, talk to him. Privately. You know.
Not quite in private. I shall have to be there.
So what did she say?
She'd have to have a word with the governor.
Oh, I don't know. The normal visits here aren't too bad. Why a welfare visit?
Bit more private. No screw watching you like an orc.
Welfare officer hangs around.
Yeah. She might turn a blind eye, you never know.
What are you getting at?
Zoe Progel.
Hey? No one else Zoe Progel then?
She's the only bird I know of that escaped from a closed nick. And that was near on 20 years ago.
And how's that got to do with anything?
I'd like to be the second.
Mrs. Brogan struck me as being quite intelligent.
All clever criminals are intelligent, Miss Clark. It's rather an interesting report here from her landing officer at the last prison. It ends and appears to have an adverse effect on the weaker and more impressionable inmates. Devious, insolent, needs watching closely.
Yes, but if you look at the disciplinary reports, you will see it's the same officer who's placed her on report each time.
Personal prejudice?
None of us are immune from that, Governor. Not even prison staff.
Some of the older ones, perhaps.
I'm sorry, I meant...
I know what you meant, Miss Clark. And I see our Mrs. Brogan is in for hoisting.
Hoisting?
Oh, yes, I'm picking up all the prison argot, like paraffin, for example.
Paraffin?
A paraffin lamp. Tramp. That's what Jane Brogan called Millie Jones the other evening. It's often a guide of sorts, isn't it?
What is?
Well, those that use a lot of underworld jargon quite often know the ropes, you know.
Oh, not necessarily. Some of the younger ones simply use it to...
Be one of the girls? And our Mrs. Brogan is in for hoisting, professional shoplifting. Professional, mind you.
She claimed the police had it in for her because she has a record for shoplifting. Lied in court.
Verbaled her up, isn't that the expression?
Yes.
She was arrested with 3 others, all from London, and they were in Manchester. Now, nobody travels all the way to Manchester from London just for a normal day's shopping. Did you believe her, Miss Clark?
Well, it doesn't really matter whether I did or not, does it? I'm concerned with her present situation and welfare.
And so am I, Miss Clark. So I think it would be a good idea if you contacted one of your colleagues and asked them to visit her husband and children first. Or you may even go yourself. She lives quite close by.
To check up if she's lying about them?
No, Miss Clark, to see if we can do anything to help. In the meantime, I'm afraid she'll just have to make do with an ordinary visit.
The can.
It's not so bad in here. I don't see the difference.
It'd be just us and a welfare woman.
Well, you still wouldn't be alone. I don't see the difference.
Oh, don't go on. It'd be better, I tell you. Do you have to keep giving them all them sweets?
Yeah, it keeps them quiet, doesn't it?
Do you think I want to be stuck in here? Away from you and the kids?
I don't know.
What's that supposed to
Well,
mean?
you are in here, aren't you?
That's not my fault.
Well, whose fault is it then? No one forced you to go thieving.
Well, we couldn't manage on the lousy wages you got.
managed.
Managed.
Oh, yes.
That's a laugh. Oh, look, Tim. We don't get along on these visits. Don't let's argue. I mean, it's daft, isn't it? You do want me back, don't you? To look after you. And the kids.
Of course.
And I want to, Den, more than anything. It's driving me mad in here. I really want to get out.
You will in another 14 months.
I mean, before then.
You can't.
Could with your help. I could escape if you'd help me.
Look, forget it, will you?
Look, Mary, if I'm to help you to get out of here, you've got to help me, you know.
I've been hearing people like you tell me that for as long as I can remember.
Well, there are some of us who mean it.
You want to help me?
Yes.
No. You're just a cog.
Cog?
In the machine. A small cog.
No, I'm not. I'm a person. And so are you, a person, an individual.
You're a cog. And do you know what I am?
You tell me.
I'm like the oil that goes round and round the pipe. Keeps the cogs moving.
That's not true.
You're a prison doctor, aren't you?
Yes. But I also see people outside.
Outside? Where's that?
You know what you were saying the other day about the difference in costs of food between the prisoners and the guard dogs?
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
I know.
We don't have guard dogs at Stone Park, Paul.
I know that too. That's not the point, is it? I mean, the food allowance is the same for male and female prisoners, isn't it?
Basically, yes. Food can be bought in bulk for all the prisoners, and quite a lot of it is produced on prison farms, and naturally that keeps the costs down.
It's about £2 per head per week.
It still costs something like £40 a week to keep a person in prison, Paul.
Well, you're on £6,000 a year for a start, Mother.
£14.90 a week. It's not much, is it?
I seem to think it's enough for a man and 2 kids to live on in the middle of London.
How much of it goes on rent?
£5.50. Out of the rest, I have to pay the gas, the electricity, clothe the kids, feed us all.
I think it's disgusting too, Mr. Brogan, but unfortunately I'm not in a position to do anything about it. I believe they do lower the rent after you've been on it for 8 weeks, which you have now.
Yeah, but then they lower the payments. I mean, you don't end up with any more to spend. The council gets less rent, that's all. Oh, God!
I don't put them in prison, Paul. I just look after them while they're there.
I'm not criticising you, Mother. I know you do. But why, for example, can't they be allowed to earn a living inside? Get a proper full day's wage for a full day's work, out of which they can help pay for their keep and that of their dependents. I mean, it's such a logical, obvious answer.
Did you know that most trade unions are opposed to prisoners doing any kind of work that might cause unemployment among their members?
That's ridiculous. So, 40,000 people, many of them capable of doing something constructive, something positive in the way of work, have to spend their time doing dull, stupefying, soul-destroying jobs like sewing mail bags or filling pencil boxes.
I'm afraid most of them, yes. But women turn to crime for quite different reasons. They're mainly emotional. They're disturbed. Social pressures.
They still have to suffer the indignity of having to rely on the system for everything. And surely it's that which causes most of the problems. The apathy, the resentment, the
Who's there?
It's Joyce. You didn't mind me asking her round for a drink and to meet your mother?
Not at all. I'd be very interested to meet the woman who suddenly turned my son into such an ardent prison reformer.
Mrs. Boswell.
Hello.
I'm so pleased to meet you at last. A real establishment figure was responsible for perpetuating our horrible penal system.
Really?
Do you,
Oh, no, thanks. Thank you. You don't mind my calling on you like this, do you?
No, I was just wondering why.
Well, Mrs. Boswell, the governor, encourages an interest in inmates' problems, and well, it helps so much if you have a good knowledge of the kind of background, the sort of domestic situation that exists outside, you know.
She's all right.
Your wife?
Yeah, she gets looked after in there. It's me.
Isn't there anyone who can look after the children so that you can go to work?
My man's dead. My old lady's too old. And Jane's parents don't want to know.
What about a day nursery?
Oh, you try and find one. That is, if you can afford it.
What was Jane like with you and the children?
She looks after us all right.
Then why did she start shoplifting?
She wanted more, you know.
Couldn't you stop her?
She's got a will of her own, my missus. And I don't like the racking, so...
You know she's been in trouble since she's been in. Oh, well, not while she's been at Stone Park, although... Well, she has been a bit difficult. Edgy, if you know what I mean.
I saw her on a visit the other day.
Yes, I know. She wanted a welfare visit.
She told me.
Oh?
You wouldn't let her have one.
Well, I'm afraid welfare visits are like any special visits. They have to be approved by the governor. And there has to be a good reason. Is there one?
Well, she's got a few visits in hand because I couldn't get up the stile to see her.
Yes, but you can now.
Yeah.
What?
Well, on those visits, you know, like with all those people about, you get uptight, you know, you can't relax, talk properly. And they go so quick.
Yes, I know. I'll tell you what, Mr. Brogan, I'll have another word with the governor. See if I can arrange something. In the meantime, try not to worry. I'm sure Jane will settle down all right. Did she tell you she's working in the laundry?
Yeah.
And she started an evening class. Art. Is she any good at it?
See, she called me Liz. I put one on her. Well, of course it is. The only colours they've given me. See, I cut her throat too this time.
No, I did.
I don't think that any intelligent person would disagree with the fact that locking people away in a totally false environment can be anything but harmful.
Nobody denies these problems, but I haven't heard you suggest any alternative solution. And I hope you wouldn't disagree that there are quite a few people in prison who would be a lot more harmful and destructive to others if they were free.
Of course not, but they're the small minority. I'm talking about the others, the so-called inadequates. Well, they aren't allowed to make any but the simplest decisions about their own lives while inside. And then the system places them outside the walls, after keeping them in this unreal cocoon, and says, there you go, now make it on your own.
No matter how progressive you or people like you are limited, hampered, if you like, by rules, regulations, bureaucracy.
And an unsympathetic public. You must remember, Paul, both of you, that the prison service is the Cinderella of social services. But you, like all young people, want to see radical changes, and you want them now, today. But that isn't possible. It takes time, patience, money.
But, Mother, millions of pounds are being spent on new prisons. Millions. And most of that on security devices. I've heard you say so myself. And £2 a head on food.
And nobody wins elections on penal reform.
Security has to be considered, you know.
So do people.
Yes, and when you've had some experience of dealing with people instead of ideas, you might begin to understand some of their problems.
Don't silly mouth, Lily. Come on now, it's time to I'm afraid there just isn't time, Ethel, to finish it off.
All right then.
And you too. Quick as you can now, pick up the tins and the paint off the floor. It's a terrible mess. Get all these chairs stacked away.
It's all very therapeutic, isn't it?
But surely, Mrs. Boswell, in prison, the creative arts provide almost the only positive element in an almost entirely negative situation.
Not entirely negative. We do encourage creative work at Stone Park. We have classes, for example, in arts and crafts, which include making soft toys, needlework, painting.
Yes, I know. 2 hours an evening, twice a week. And for the other 164 hours a week, your charges spend their time in mind-numbing occupations like making jam or treadling sewing machines.
Oh, Joyce,
And I know it's only a few hours a week because I happen to have a friend who takes the art class at your prison, David Jenkins, who, incidentally, has been teaching there now for almost 6 months and tells me that he has never even seen you, let alone met you.
Joyce, really,
Which may or may not be indicative of the amount of encouragement that you give to creative work, Mrs. Boswell.
I think perhaps you'd better take Miss Fletcher home, Paul.
Well, I'm sorry. I've been very rude, Mrs. Boswell. Was a guest in your home, it's inexcusable, I know. But I do feel very strongly about these things, and I can't stand hypocrisy, especially in myself. I couldn't just sit there and pretend.
Good night, Miss Fletcher.
But why not?
Oh, it's not worth it.
You must like it in here.
I hate it.
Well then?
Oh, don't be silly, Jane. It's just that... Oh, well, I want to finish with all this coming in these places. If I escape, well... Anyway, you never get away with it.
Look, no one expects women to escape. That's why it'll be easy.
And what would you do if you get out? If you get out?
Well, what are you going to do when you get out after rotting in here for another year?
I've got something to look forward to now.
What?
Something?
Nothing. You're living in a world of fantasy. Like most of the silly bitches in here.
No, I'm not.
Well, what have you got to look forward to that's so different then?
Doesn't matter.
Promised to marry you or something, has he?
What?
Come off it, love. The art teacher.
I don't know what you mean.
No?
No.
Well, you're not exactly discreet, are you? Gazing into each other's eyes, quiet chats in the corner. You want to watch it, you know. That screw, what's her name, Flaxton. She was looking at you both a bit sussy when we were leaving.
It's not like that.
Oh, stop kidding yourself, love. He's just feeling sorry for you. Or maybe he's just trying to get you into the storeroom to get into your knickers. So you don't want to know then? About escaping?
No, Jane. I don't want to know. She was lying on the floor, groaning and clutching her stomach. I turned on the ordinary light to see more clearly and immediately called the night duty officer.
I arrived within a few minutes, unlocked the door, and Sister and I helped her onto her bed. I noticed she was cold and clammy, and my eye caught a tin of metal polish half hidden under the table. I rang Dr. Mays at once.
Why didn't you call me?
It was thought best not to disturb you at that hour, madam, until Dr. Mays had seen her.
I see.
After all, Mr. Radley was
Nevertheless, if this ever happens again, you must call me immediately, no matter what the hour is.
here. Very good, madam. I am holding a full investigation to find out how that tin of metal polish got left there.
When was the last time that you saw and spoke to her, Doctor?
The day before yesterday.
Why was that?
Well, I took the morning sick parade as usual. The rest of the day I had to spend at a conference.
How was she?
Well, if anything, a little better, more responsive. At least she was talking.
What about?
About being oil for the machine.
Oil?
I'm sorry. She saw that as an analogy for her situation.
How very depressing.
Well, yes, it was, but paradoxically, I looked on it as an improvement. At least she was beginning to communicate.
I see. Well, as you all know, I have to send a written report to the Home Office enclosing your reports. Now, what we have to assess here and what I have to decide upon is whether it was more along the lines of attention-seeking or whether it was a determined effort to commit suicide.
I don't think we ought to rule the idea of attention-seeking out of hand. We have had quite a few similar cases.
See, there's nothing in her past record to indicate that she'd behave in any adverse way, apart from continually absconding. There are certainly no suicidal tendencies.
So you don't think it was a serious attempt, then?
Well, I know that she was depressed, but... No, not in my opinion to the extent of making her suicidal.
She was due to come up in court very soon. Maybe it was the thought of that that precipitated it.
Yes. Perhaps she just couldn't face it again. Does that surprise you, Doctor? Good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. Jenkins, isn't it?
Yes.
How do you do? I'm Mrs. Boswell.
The governor?
Yes. Oh, that's very good. Very good indeed. Isn't it, Mr. Jenkins?
Yes, it is very good.
Don't you think so, Mrs. Armitage?
Oh, I don't claim to know much about painting, madam, but it certainly looks very nice.
How long have you been painting, Isabel?
Oh, well, I've only ever done it since I've been inside, madam.
Really? Oh, a talent like that deserves every encouragement. Don't you agree, Mr. Jenkins?
Oh, yes.
I believe I met a friend of yours the other night.
Oh, who?
Joyce Fletcher.
Oh, yes, we were at art school together.
She seems to think that we don't do enough to encourage creative work in Stone Park. What do you think?
Well, Joyce has rather strong views on most things.
No, what I meant was, do you think that we do enough?
I'm afraid I'm biased.
Apart from these classes, we do allow them to do creative work in their cells, in their spare time, if they wish.
And there's always the Arthur Koestler Awards each year.
Yes, but is that enough?
Well, there was a time, Mr. Jenkins, when they didn't even get that. Oh, hello, Jane. How are you doing?
All right, thanks, madam.
I saw Miss Clark the other day. She's been to see your husband. I'm afraid he isn't finding it very easy to cope without you, you know. But the children are quite well.
Yes, madam. Miss Clark told me.
So I wouldn't object to you having a welfare visit if you wanted one.
Oh, thanks, madam.
However, Make a formal application in the morning.
Oh, I will, madam.
And the children?
Next door neighbour's looking after them for me for a couple of hours.
Good. I'm afraid I'll have to hover about, but I can see all right from out here.
Thanks, Miss Clark. We really do appreciate this, you know.
That's right.
Have you got it?
Jane.
Have you?
Yeah, but...
Well, let's have it then,
Jane,
quick.
this is stupid.
What is?
This whole idea, it's mad.
You do want me back with you and the kids, don't you?
Of course I do, but not like this.
You
I mean...
promised, Den. Don't let me down now.
We'll never get away with it.
We will if you do it the way I said.
What if you get caught? What if I get
We
caught?
won't.
What will happen to the kids? Have you thought about
Den,
that?
I've got to get out of here.
What about the flat?
A council tip.
What the furniture?
That load of rubbish. I told you, get one of those second-hand furniture blokes round, sell the lot. We'll need the money. We've got to have that.
Where will we live?
Anywhere. Brighton, Liverpool. You can rent a furnished flat quite cheap up there. Honestly, it'll be okay. Then if you let me down, that's it.
What do you mean?
We're finished. I won't come back to you when I do get out. Okay? Now.
Why they search you?
Probably. Don't worry, I'll cope with that.
Jane, please.
Oh, don't, Den.
No, Jane. Jane!
It's only a little kiss.
Get off. About that bird in your Peter.
Bella,
She gonna help?
don't worry about her. She'll help.
I know you don't fancy the idea, Millie, but these new hospitals are really very nice, aren't they, Mrs. Armitage?
Oh, yes, you'll have a nice clean bed to sleep in. Come and go as you please.
I'll talk to the superintendent. I'm sure he can find a nice
I
little job
don't
for you
know,
around
Mum.
the place.
I likes me freedom.
Freedom? You spend most of your time here.
When I'm on the outside...
Dossing in
I-
doorways, not eating, drinking meths. I don't call that freedom, Millie. What is it, Miss Flaxton?
I think the governor should see this at once, Chief.
Well, you think it over, Millie. I have another word with you before you go out.
All right, Mum.
The censor has just found this in the letterbox.
Isabel Coyne and the art teacher are having it off. And he's taking letters out for her as well. I think we should see our art teacher as soon as possible, Mrs. Armitage.
I'll call the education officer.
I'm sorry, Mr. Sewell, but couldn't you simply take my word for it?
In the circumstances, that would be difficult.
I'd like to, but I can't ignore the situation.
But there isn't any situation.
But you have admitted taking letters from this girl, Mr. Jenkins.
Yes,
and
but
it is
that's
possible,
all-
is it not, that if she asked you to take other letters out from other people to other people, you may well do so.
Certainly not.
Mrs. Armitage is quite right. Security is an important issue, Mr. Jenkins. However, I am prepared to take your word for it. But in the meantime, I must ask you to withhold your services until Mr. Sewell and I have come to some final decision about your future.
And Isabel? It's all she's got to keep her going.
But we shan't stop her painting. You must understand that to a person in prison who feels lonely and rejected, a situation like this can become exaggerated. It takes on a meaning that doesn't really exist.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Boswell, but with all due respect, I don't see it that way at all. If someone like Isabel feels lonely and rejected, surely it can only make her feel more so if she's denied a friendship.
I know it seems like a harsh decision. Frankly, it's not one I like taking.
The official view.
The sensible one?
I told you, governors never stick up for you. It's all a con, love.
It's so unfair.
He told him about the letters. I mean, that's like grassing, isn't it? Just playing games with you. Like the rest of them in here.
to the courts, Mary, supporting Dr. May's recommendations.
A nut house?
No, Mary, a psychiatric hospital, where you'll receive the kind of help that we're not equipped to give you here. I've also arranged for legal aid so that your case can be reconsidered, which could mean that your sentence is commuted to one of, say, probation.
But I've got nowhere to live.
Well, I'm sure we can arrange something.
And it won't be an institution again. All right.
Okay, Mother, I'll get it. Yes?
My name's Dennis Brogan. Can I see your mother, please? It's very urgent.
Mr. Brogan. He says he knows you.
Brogan?
Yes, Jane Brogan's husband. Look, I'm sorry to butt in like this. I just didn't know what else to do.
How do you know where I lived?
I followed you from the prison.
How?
I came by bus. Is it about Jane?
Yeah.
You should have rung the prison, made an appointment.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just didn't think I could have changed my mind, you know?
All right, Paul. Well, you better sit down. Tell me what it's all about.
Bread.
All right, you two. Up and get your kits packed. Take them down to the block.
Come on.
I suppose they'll have to go before the visiting committee.
It's too serious for me to deal with.
And the husband is liable for prosecution.
Yes, but as he told us about it, I doubt if they will prosecute.
It looks as though the coin girl had become completely dependent on young Jenkins. It's a pity he had to go.
What else could I do in a situation like that? I know that it was Jane Brogan who wrote that anonymous letter. It'll be very difficult to prove.
What on earth made them think they could get away with it?
Dreams, Mr. Red. Things that keep us all going at times.